how much does professional pressure, and I'm using that term loosely, play into the slippery slope to addiction?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. It's a complicated answer, but I'll give you a fast one, right? So let's go back to my definition of an addiction. It is an unhealthy, compulsive relationship with a person, substance, or behavior that has mood-altering effects and negative consequences. So let's just talk about workaholism. How many people do I know or have sat in my office and said, for the last 30 years, I have worked 80-hour work weeks at an investment bank in Manhattan. I am now X years old. I've had a heart attack. My kids don't know who I am. My wife ran away with my personal trainer. You know what I mean? Because I was always on the road working. I have been obsessed with this job, and it has ruined my life, and I don't know how to stop. Or I just retired, and my identity doesn't exist anymore, and I don't, right? It's an addiction. It supported their self-esteem. It had mood-altering effects, made them feel like king of the world or queen of the world, right? And it had negative consequences. So addiction is so subtle. There's so many ways it can play out. Let's just face it, like marketing is largely a game of trying to get people to be addicted, right, to solutions, right? Because ultimately, an addiction is an external solution to an internal problem. And so the external solution could be, whatever your thing is, right, to an internal problem. But the reality is, and we know this, spiritually, like happiness is an inside job. Peace is an inside job. Wholeness is work that has to be done from the inside out. You can't engage in a person, a substance, or a behavior, right, is not going to solve that internal problem. In fact, what ends up happening is the external solution becomes a bigger problem than the problem it sought to solve.
Yeah.
It's
really deep.
It is quite deep. It's a deeply spiritual issue. It's not just psychological and physiological, though it's that, right? It's a profoundly spiritual issue. And
okay, let's go into that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's because I agree with you, but I want you to describe that. What is that profound spiritual problem that's at the root?
Yeah.
I think I know where you're going, and I know this has got a lot of layers.
There's so many legs. There's so many layers to this, but I love this conversation, right? So the spiritual problem, and by the way, it's interesting, and people don't realize this, like here's the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. That is the purpose of the 12 steps. The purpose of the 12 steps is not to get you to stop drinking, watching porn, overeating, or whatever 12-step thing you're doing what you're doing them for, right? Those were the symptoms of the problem. They're not the problem.
That's right.
Alcohol is not the alcoholic's problem. It's their solution to their problem, right? People tend to think, the alcohol is the problem. Nope, it was the solution to the problem. The problem is the hole in the soul.
Yes.
The problem is just how hard it is to be human. Anxiety, depression, worry, right? Like, can we just all agree? Like, sometimes this is why it drives me crazy about. I'm coming out of the box now, right?
Good.
Like, so much of the faith-based world wants to put a pretty little ribbon on everything that's going on. But can we just face that life is hard and admit it out loud?
Yeah.
Like, life is difficult.
That's correct.
Right? And we try to find solutions to make it less difficult, right? And the problem is, in the end, those solutions make life more difficult than it was before we tried using the solution.
Yeah.
Right? The only way out of this is a relationship with a power greater than yourself, a spiritual awakening of sufficient force, that it moves your self-centered ego out of the way with all of its crazy ideas of how I can make life work, right? To move from an egocentric life to a God-centric life.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, what were you looking for in those addictions all along? Whether you know it or not, you were looking for God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why the solution for the addict it has to be principally spiritual.